Well, you've probably heard the headlines. Interest rates are high and house prices are high. And it's pretty crazy in the real estate market, right?
It really is. So the question is renting better than owning right now?
This is a question that we get asked constantly. So let's dive into it in today's video. We're Rod and Melody, your guides to living in Salt Lake City and beyond. With over 30 years in Utah real estate, we're here to help you navigate this beautiful state with confidence. We make videos about living in Salt Lake, exploring the suburbs, and what life in Utah is really like. We've helped over 1,400 families make their move in, out, and around Utah. And whether you're headed to St. George, South Jordan, or Smithfield, we've got you covered. So the first thing we want to talk about is the myth of throwing your money away when you're renting.
So there are cases where renting actually is better than owning, right? If you're going to be there short term, if you don't have a lot of money to cover repairs and different things like that, renting can be appealing because if anything happens, your landlord is responsible to get it back working and functioning again.
So when I got a divorce, my mom told me to rent and not buy because of the time of life. So you want to take that into consideration as well. Is it a short term that you're going to be staying in a certain place, or is this going to be a place that you're going to put your roots down? So that is something that I would consider.
A couple of things to consider, however, if you decide that renting is your better option. Number one, every penny that you put into your housing is actually going to pay a mortgage. It's just somebody else's mortgage and not your own, it's your landlord's. When you own a property, a portion of every payment is going to pay down the principal balance on the loan, so you're building equity and you're building a little bit of forced savings along the way. The next thing that I think you ought to consider are the tax benefits of owning your own home. As it stands, you can still write off 100% of the interest that you pay on your homes off of your income. If you itemize, a simple example of this, let's say you're in a $400,000 home and you're paying about a 6% interest rate. That's $24,000 roughly per year that goes towards interest that you get to deduct from your income when you go to pay your taxes. So if you're paying a 30% tax bracket on $24,000, that's $7,500 that you have saved in taxes in 1 year.
And that's significant on your tax return every single year.
Yeah, that's like $600 of your monthly mortgage payment that you get back in net worth.
It's actually one of my favorite write-off lines.
So we talked a little bit about principal reduction. We talked a little bit now about tax benefits. The third benefit is appreciation. See, when you're renting and property values are going up, which they have been, in fact, it's one of the best ways to protect against inflation is to own an asset that appreciates. So if the value of the dollar drops, you're actually still maintaining your savings.
So buying a car is not an asset?
The problem with a car is it's a depreciating asset, and so as you put miles on the car becomes less and less valuable. It needs more and more repairs. So you're paying all this money towards something that at the end of, by the time you get it paid off, it's pretty much worth zero or very small.
Very true.
Where if you've got a something like a home that is an appreciating asset, the property values go up with inflation. So as the dollar buys less, the house value increases. But the other piece is appreciation. So when you're renting, your landlord gets 100% of the appreciation. Here's a nightmare scenario that a lot of us have experienced. In fact, a lot of us recently, right? From 2020 to now, property values have gone up nationwide about 48%. So if you were renting from 2020 until now, your landlord gained the benefit of a 48% increase in net worth that you actually paid for if you were renting.
All right, so here's some real world numbers for you. I ran these on a $500,000 mortgage with a 6% interest rate and a 30-year loan. So your principal and interest payment on that would be about $3,000 per month. We talked about the three benefits of homeownership being principal reduction, appreciation, and the tax benefits. So what does this really look like? Well, first of all, on that $3,000 payment, $2,500 of that early on in the loan process is going to go towards interest, while about $500 is going to go towards principal reduction. So if we multiply that by 12 months, that's a $6,000 benefit each year by paying your mortgage on principal reduction. So you've made $6,000. The next benefit we want to talk about is appreciation. So if we had a 3% appreciation, which has been pretty standard over the last 50 years for owning a home, you would gain about $15,000 in equity in the first year that you own that home. So far, with the appreciation and the principal reduction, we've gained $21,000 in net worth by paying $3,000 per month on a mortgage. The final thing we talk about is a tax benefit. So a typical tax bracket today is about 30%. So if you get to write off your interest from your income as a benefit to home ownership, $24,000 of the $30,000 that you paid went towards interest. So if you take $24,000 times a 30% tax bracket, you're going to make about a $7,500 per year tax benefit where you're going to save because you were able to write the interest off on your taxes. So we're at $28,500 gained of the $36,000 that you're paying on your mortgage. So technically you're only paying about $7,500 per year as far as the cost goes for the ownership, because the rest of it is improving your net worth. I would much rather pay $7,500 per year than rent, which would be about $3,000 per month as well. If there was a zero appreciation, that would mean that you've lost that $15,000 worth of benefits, so you're only gaining about $13,500 in benefit if there's zero appreciation. But that $13,500 off of the $36,000 per year that you pay leaves you at about $24,000. So your effective cost to live in that house is about $2,000 per month. If you were renting today a $500,000 house, your rent's going to be really close to $2,800 to $3,000 per month. So either way, even in a period where we're seeing zero appreciation, you're still better off owning the home because you're gaining in net worth than you would be renting, where everything you pay goes to benefit your landlord. Check this out.
The question is, do you rent or do you buy? Look, if we even today are in a position where property values might decline a little bit, we may see some depreciation because of the affordability problem until that gets solved. Fewer and fewer people are qualifying to buy homes, and so that's been a little bit of an issue. Even if property values decline, 3 to 5%, or maybe in a really, really bad case, maybe they go down 10%, you're still gaining principal reduction. You're still gaining your tax benefits, so it's still almost a wash. The key to retiring in today's world is having your house paid off. It's nearly impossible to retire unless you have figured out a way to eliminate most of, if not all of, your housing costs. So it's typically a 30-year marathon. And the question is, when do you want to start that marathon? 5 years from now when the market's a little bit more healthy, or 10 years from now when you can get to the point where you might be able to afford it because you're making enough money? You've still got that 30-year marathon starting the day you buy your home. And so consider that. How old am I going to be when I start that marathon of 30 years paying down my mortgage to zero?
Okay, another thing that I like to think about with owning a home versus renting is sometimes you have things that you would like to spend your money on that aren't necessarily savings or building your net worth. And with home ownership, you actually have a forced savings account. That's how I think about it, is every single month I'm not throwing away the money. It is going towards my net worth. And you can do a net worth sheet at any time and watch that your net worth grow as you pay down that mortgage. That does help incentivize you to own a home versus renting, because it's definitely not even on the line of net worth.
One other thing to consider is that banks are reasonably conservative. So when you go to buy a home, most of us don't have the cash to just be able to drop on a house. So the bank has to qualify you for a mortgage. Well, banks are fairly conservative. If they say that you're qualified up to a certain dollar amount, they're taking into consideration your debts. They're taking into consideration your income. They're taking into consideration today with where you're at, can you afford it? And you lock in that price at today's prices and today's values, as opposed to 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when values have gone up, prices have gone up, and all of that kind of stuff. And now you're starting with maybe a higher payment. So lock in your payment. And if a bank says you're approved, You may have to tighten your belt just a little bit, but they're fairly conservative. So they're saying that you're okay to be able to go and buy a home. I would really much rather see you own an asset than be in a situation where a landlord can decide, hey, we've decided we want to sell your home. Your kids are in school. Now you've got to find a new place to rent. Maybe rent costs have gone up and you have 30 days to find a new place to live. Yeah. There are a lot of reasons why owning a home creates stability. There are some financial benefits and factors to consider. There's long-term benefits and factors to consider. So my advice, even to my kids today, in today's market where we might see some depreciation, I would much rather you own the asset than pay the mortgage of your landlord.
There are a couple of reasons why you might consider renting versus owning. And one of the top things that new homeowners say when they move in is, oh my gosh, there's so much work that needs to be done. I'm now responsible for all of the repairs. The dishwasher goes out, I have to go buy a new dishwasher. The hot water heater fails and they have to go buy a hot water heater. That is now your responsibility when you own the home. So if you're not prepared to be able to take care of it and maintain the home, homeownership may not be for you.
There are some costs, right?
Yeah.
It is a good idea to sit down with your parents or with somebody who's been in that situation before and go, what should I prepare for? What does my utility costs look like? How is this going to impact my cost of living? It is something to definitely keep in mind when you're considering buying a home.
Yeah, but in return for taking responsibility for all of the maintenance and repairs on a home, you actually get to decide if you want to paint a different color or to tear down a wall or anything like that inside of your home. You actually have freedom to do all of that. And I think that's really important, at least to me.
Yeah, as long as your spouse says yes. Melody wants to paint our house all the time. And I'm like, no, that's a bad idea, babe.
He won't let me paint anything. It's really sad. So if I paint anything, it's going to be the same white color as it was before. So
it's not completely white.
Maybe you'll...
It's like a shade of white. I'm broken. I sell too many houses, so I see when people get picky with their colors and they paint one room one color and another room another color, how absolutely impossible it is to sell that home. So don't do stupid stuff.
Yeah, but if you want to do that, you have the freedom to do that. Just when you go to sell it, we'll have you paint it white again.
Yeah, we let our kids pick our room colors, and yeah, that was a bad idea.
Yeah, black.
Or pink.
Yeah, don't do pink either.
Or pretty much any other color other than white or a little off-white.
So if you want to sit down and strategize whether owning a home or renting is better for you, give us a call. There's a link in the description below, and you can schedule a free Zoom call with us. And watch the next video here.